Human history has been written with water. Civilizations are founded along riverbanks, wage wars across oceans, and are nourished by rain. Water is life. But what if the flood isn't water? The year 1814. London. The heart of the Industrial Revolution, the capital of the world. The noise of steam engines, the smoke of factories, and an insatiable drive for production. The city is struggling to breathe under a cloud of black smoke. But on that day, October 17th, it wasn't smoke that would engulf London. It wasn't a disaster that came from the sky either. This catastrophe was a man-made, pitch-black, hot, and deadly ocean. History books call it the London Beer Flood. Some people smiled when they saw his name. Some people said, "What a wonderful death with free beer." But this was one of the biggest lies in history. Because what flowed through the streets that day was not joy, but pure horror. Onyx Able presents the strangest mass destruction in history, disguised as an accident. To understand the story, you first need to sense the scene. Yes, smelling it. This is St. Giles' neighborhood, as the Londoners of the time called it. Rookery. This was the bowels of the empire, where sewage flows openly and clean water is a luxury. A labyrinth where Irish immigrants and those excluded from society find refuge. People weren't living here. They were just trying to survive. 3 families were sleeping in one room, taking turns. But when they looked up, they saw a shadow looming over them, the Meux Brewery. This factory was more than just a building. He was the embodiment of the Industrial Revolution, capitalism, and power. Wealth and poverty. There was only a thin brick wall between them. On one side, a beer industry worth millions of liras. On the other, people who can't even find bread. Fate was about to unite these two worlds in a terrifying way. The owners of the Meux factory were in a competition. More production, more storage, more money. Driven by this ambition, they built monsters that pushed the boundaries of engineering. They called them vat. But these weren't ordinary barrels. Focus. Imagine a 7-meter-high wooden tower. Its circumference is 18 meters. A total of 610,000 liters of porter beer is fermented inside. The liquid is alive. It's fermenting, producing gas, and wants to get out. The only thing holding up this immense pressure are the rusty iron rings wrapped around the barrel. The date is October 17th. 4:30 p.m. Warehouse manager George Crick noticed something while conducting his routine check. One of the enormous iron hoops, weighing 700 kilograms, had slipped from the barrel's frame and fallen to the ground. It was like finding a crack in a nuclear reactor. But what did Crick do? Panic? No. In this factory's culture, neglect was normal. He made a note in his notebook, to be repaired tomorrow. But the laws of physics didn't care about George's working hours. It's 5:30 p.m. Time's up. The pressure inside the barrel found its weakest point. That's where the missing link is. First, a crackling sound was heard. Then, one of the biggest explosions London had ever heard occurred. Boom! The barrel exploded from the inside out. But the story didn't end there. The chain reaction has begun. The shock wave from the exploding barrel knocked down the other massive barrels next to it like dominoes. In a single second, 1.5 million liters of liquid were released from the reservoir. This wasn't a liquid, this was a sledgehammer. It crashed into the factory's 70-centimeter thick back wall. The wall crumbled as if it were made of paper. And that black, hot, foamy ocean was set free. He had only one goal: to go down. New Street. And the vulnerable people there. The beer flood turned into a tsunami 4.5 meters high. Once they entered the narrow streets, there was no escape. He dismantled the brick houses from their foundations. He caught people at dinner time, and while they were asleep. But the most poignant chapter of this story was written in a basement. An Irish family was performing their traditional morning ritual, the wake, for their child who had died the day before. They were praying, embracing each other. The basement was below street level. When the flood came, it became not an escape route, but a graveyard. And Mary Banfield and her 4-year-old daughter Hannah. They were drinking their tea. It only lasted seconds. What filled the room wasn't water. It was a thick, sticky, suffocating alcohol vapor. The house of mourning was turned into a mass grave. They joined them as they said goodbye to their loved ones. When the silence that followed the disaster descended, another mechanism began to operate: propaganda. Even today, when you search for them on the internet, you come across those funny stories. Stories that say, people poured into the streets, drank free beer, and got drunk. It was all a lie. This was a scenario fabricated by the British press of the time to portray poor Irish immigrants as primitive and drunkards. Do you know what the real witnesses are saying? People plunged into that tar-like liquid not for pleasure, but to rescue their neighbors trapped under the rubble. Nobody laughed that day. No one raised a glass that day. 8 people died that day. They were all women and children. Eleanor Cooper died after being trapped under the pub's wall. Hannah Bamfield was just beginning his life. And the final scene, the Palace of Justice. Everyone was looking for a culprit. A negligent warehouse manager, or the profit-hungry Meux family. The jury announced its verdict: act of God. In other words, force majeure. God's work. According to the court, the breaking of that rusty circle, the collapse of that wall, the deaths of those children. It was all God's will. There was no human error. Meux Brewery didn't spend a single day in jail. They even appealed to the British Parliament saying, "We want a tax refund for the beer we wasted." And they took it. The government paid compensation to the factory responsible for the deaths, while not giving a single penny to the families of those who died. The factory was repaired and operated for another 100 years. If you walk down Tottenham Court Road today, you won't see any trace of that day. But we remember. As I close the Onyx Able file, I ask, do you think this was God's work? Or is it the price of insatiable greed? remain skeptical.